So I am Ivan, as you wish, SACHE, Professor of Plant Pathology and Plant Disease Epidemiology at AgroParisTech near Paris. I have the great honor to co-chair this keynote session. So it's the first time in my life that I face such a big audience, probably the last one too. And so thank you very much to all of you for coming for such various diverse places, who travel so long just to meet together in Lyon. So a big diversity of people, that's very nice, because we all know that diversity is required to struggle against plant diseases, so diversity is good for us too. So I would like to thank the organizer and the scientific committee to have appointed me to share this session. And also a big thank to my neighbor, to Professor Brenda WINGFIELD, who accepted in a hurry to co-chair the session with me, and I will give her the lead and let her introduce herself better than I can do. Brenda, please.
Thank you, Ivan. Thanks. So it is, I think, still good morning. Welcome, everybody. And I thought as a starting point, because this is the session that really crystallizes the focus of this particular ICPP meeting, the role of plant pathology in a One Health world. And I'd like to start, Jan told a story earlier, and I'd like to start with a little bit of a story of my own. I work with tree diseases, and quite often when I'm engaging with journalists and the like, they ask me, well, why is your work important? And I can't say, well, I save, you think that should go down, sorry. I can't say, well, I save food. So my mantra for many years now has been, and I think I stole it from Greg, that, if trees did something really interesting, like produce a Wi-Fi signal, everyone would plant them. Instead, they produce oxygen, which we breathe. So on that note, plants are incredibly important for many, many different reasons, and are quite often ignored. And like a number of the speakers in this session, I'm an African, come from South Africa, and as we teach people about diseases of trees, sometimes people will say, oh, is that caused by a disease? I thought that tree kind of grows like that naturally. So many diseases, I think, are overlooked. Plant diseases are overlooked because they just are so small, and we can't see them. So to lead us in this session, we have Professor Justin PITA, and Justin and I actually are adjunct professors at the same university in the USA. So we've not met personally before. Justin is an epidemiologist who leads the West African viral epidemiology, what you called it, Justin, session. And he's going to talk to us about some of the work that he's been doing. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Justin, a greater pleasure to actually meet Justin in my case, for the first time. Justin.
Okay, good morning again. Thank you, Brenda, for the introduction, and I'm very happy to meet you two for the first time. I'd like to also thank Ivan for chairing the session. Thank the organizing committee for inviting me to talk today, particularly Jan, Mathias, and Didier. So, plant health for One Health in Central and West Africa. Since this morning, we heard that plant health is a triad of human health, animal health, and the environment. We also know that plant health is usually excluded from the One Health concept. That's the reason why the ICPP2023 would like to promote the integration of plant health into the One Health concept. Is it possible in West and Central Africa? That's what we're going to discuss with you. Thank you, Jen. I think that is a way to also integrate Africa into ICPP, because I see that we are only a few of us here. So to do that, what we're going to do is to review the status of the One Health in selected countries of CWA, present the WAVE model to boost plant health and One Health across Central and West Africa, and we'll finish by a short conclusion and acknowledgement. Status of One Health in selected Central and West African countries. Here, really, we can save a lot of time just to say that, as we know, plant health is not included. And then we'll have saved like 5 minutes. But I will take you through quickly what is happening in Côte d'Ivoire, my country, where the most achievement there for now is setting up of a national multi-sectorial action plan to combat antimicrobial resistance. That's what has been done. Nothing regarding plant health in Côte d'Ivoire. It's the same in Togo, in West Africa, Togo, where One Health focuses so far, again, on antimicrobial resistance. In Cameroon, the plant health strategy is in place since 2012, although the One Health strategy does not cover everything, even antimicrobial resistance. It does not also include plant health. Same thing in Ghana. You see here on this table, they listed the rank the hazard by risk. And the closest we can get to plant maybe is drought here. And what they said in the plant health document is one notable exception is the recent development of Ghana's national policy and action plan, again on antimicrobial resistance. No plant health. In DRC, it's worse, because there they don't have one platform for One Health, they have 3. One set up by the Ministry of Higher Education, one from the Health Federation, and one from the Ministry of Fishery. But both platforms are not working together. They are not coordinated, and again, no plant health included. Same thing in the big country of Nigeria, where most of the emphasis is put on human and animal health again, no plant health. Sierra Leone, the plan was launched in 2017 by the vice president of the country. And when you look at the document, the governance manual, you see that it's the same thing all again. On paper, nothing on plant health. However, Sierra Leone is on the verge of reviewing its One Health governance manual to include plant health. Why is that? It's because WAVE is sitting on the secretariat of the One Health platform in Sierra Leone. And why are we sitting there? As Joseph Bunting, the technical coordinator of the One Health platform in Sierra Leone, is saying, the WAVE project has been one of the few which has epitomized, there is a typo here, epitomized the One Health spirit in terms of collaboration across sectors in the implementation process, with much appreciation for the National One Health platform and its structures. What we have done, support the development of a rapid response system for cassava diseases in Sierra Leone, and increase awareness of the importance of plant health, a lot of mass awareness we did also a lot of stakeholder engagement. Most of all, we built, equipped the first and only diagnostic laboratory, molecular diagnostic laboratory for Sierra Leone, which was inaugurated in May this year. The WAVE model to boost plant health and One Health is designed such as we can have a strong plant health system before we can integrate it into the plant health platform. There is a famous saying in French, quand on montre la lune du doigt, l'idiot regarde le doigt. To say it in English, when you show the moon with the finger, the idiot is looking at the finger instead of looking at the moon. But at WAVE, what we think is to allow both the ignorant and the smart person to follow the finger to go to the moon. This is the reason why we are using root and tuber crops and viral diseases to develop our model. Because our moon really is to expand this WAVE model to other crops and other countries to establish an efficient, strong plant health system for food and income security for all in West and Central Africa. WAVE stands for Central and West African Virus Epidemiology. It's funded by BMGF and FCDO in UK. It was created by African scientists, 10 African scientists from 7 countries who identified the need for plant disease surveillance, early warning system, but also response preparedness. Our vision is really disease-free crop for food and income security for all in Africa. And for that, we like to go far by going fast, but together. This is very important. Our vision, our mission is really to increase agricultural productivity in a sustainable manner by coordination is very important, plant diseases. Approach, no borders, no silos. That's the reason why WAVE is an alliance of 7 NAS from 10 countries. The crops is cassava. This morning, the first speaker talked about cassava. Cassava is our star crop, not just because of what is listed here, but because cassava has a convening power. It's a very important crop in Africa. Everybody agrees with that. If there is problem with cassava, then we have problem in Africa. So, the threats, cassava viral diseases. Cassava mosaic disease here is found everywhere cassava is grown in southern Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. Cassava brown streak disease here, loss of 80 to 100%. Both diseases are propagated by the whitefly vector, the small, tiny insect you see here, and by infecting cuttings. But what is important to notice is that cassava brown streak disease is not yet in West Africa. And this is an opportunity to do something. This simulation here, this model developed by our colleagues from Cambridge University and us, from data from Uganda and from WAVE, shows that when you have a first incursion in Cameroon, which is here, Nigeria is on fire. And if Nigeria is on fire, that means the whole West Africa is on fire. So we have an opportunity to do something. We have to be proactive. We cannot be reactive. That's the reason why the WAVE project decided to work. When we started, we have a lot of challenges, lack of scientists trained, lack of facilities, and so on. But we have to overcome all those difficulties by reversing the tide. And how we did it? By building capacity first, at the infrastructure level, human level, and financial level. Out of the 13 laboratories that we built, refurbished, equipped, 10 of them are fully functional. Here you see where we started in DRC, Eastern DRC. We cut this tree here. And today you go there, you will see this laboratory standing there. It's not fully functional, it's 80% functional. This is the latest. We inaugurated in May this year in Sierra Leone. Our education program is it has a strong gender component with a Wave Women Career Accelerator. All the ladies we see here started at master, they are PhD students today. With the financial capacity, we strengthen the system in all the hubs where we are working in the 10 countries. Our science, that's where we are today. Although we are focused on the pathogen, we know we have to consider the host, the vector, but also the changing environment. That's the reason why WAVE is a model that bridges discipline. 26 years ago, when I started my PhD, I worked on characterizing the virus that was the cause of the Ugandan epidemic. Before the epidemic, this picture is from my thesis. Before the epidemic, this is the type of yield you have. During the epidemic, that's the type of yield you have. That was a problem. A famine, 3,000 people died, not because of the virus, but because of a famine. And this epidemic was a cocktail. I'm not going to go in detail to explain the cause of this epidemic, because I don't have time. But at the time of the epidemic, what is important, we didn't know the virus genetic diversity. We didn't know what were the cassava genotypes that were grown there in the country. We didn't know also the different species of whitefly. And today, you go to any of those countries, it's the same thing. But WAVE is really working on changing that by filling the gaps with quality data available, but also building the capacity to use this data to inform decision-making. That's why it's important, not just to publish, but for decision-making. Here, for example, you see the survey we did in 2020, the distribution of begomoviruses. It has never been done at this scale. Everything you see in green here are strains of EACMV that are gone under the radar, because all the diagnostic tools existing today did not allow to get this. So the certification program that we have there missed this strain that you see here until we found it. That's the reason why we decided to uncover the cassava virome for 14 countries. And for that, we are working in CIRAD, with Jean-Michel Lett and his team. You see here, in 2020, for example, in Sierra Leone, the incidence of the disease is so high. Now we know why, because we have boots on the ground. We have developed a multi-dimensional cassava disease database that we call the CUBE. It's a powerful regional database that can be the foundation for plant health in Central and West Africa. This CUBE, from data from the labs, from the field, for historical data, can be used for Power BI or to develop a model that I've been showing. Here, for example, is an interactive, if you go to our site, you have this interactive tool where you can go by site and see what is happening by year and everything. I don't have time to go in detail to that. I will just pass by. So regarding the hosts, we are working on genotyping, cataloging, and developing distribution map of the cultivars of cassava that are grown in all the 14 countries. And here, for example, is only one character of the petiole of the plant, color of the petiole. We are doing that with some consultants from IITA, Ferguson, from SIAT, YAO, but also with cassava base, because we're not going to create another database just for cassava data. With cassava base, we are working. At the vector level, if you see here this map, you will see that in northern Nigeria, there is an abundance of whitefly hearing. And throughout the year, this seems to move. Why we think is that there is a speciation along this route here, going from Rwanda all the way to Nigeria. And we are working on that with our colleague from CIRAD also, Hélène Delette. The environment, cassava is grown on the soil. We need to know what is happening in the soil. And we are looking for microorganisms, and we are working with Cambridge with the ENSA project. We need to also evaluate the impact of what we are doing, and we are building a community of practice of socioeconomy. Modeling is so important because it's help for anticipation and response. Here you can see on the left a model that shows that if we do not do anything, if we have an incursion around Nigeria, this is how it's going to spread. But on the right side, by deploying strategically resistant material, we can curb the disease. And this is important. It's important for the response plan that we developed and signed by the government for 10 countries. And this has been done with all the stakeholders in each country. This is a static response plan, and we have to develop a dynamic response plan now. We are working with the modelers to do that. Just to say that stakeholder buying is so important, not only from the ministers, but also for traditional rulers. Because you know in Africa, just after one coup d'etat, all those ministers will not be there anymore. But the traditional rulers are here until they die. So we also work with traditional rulers. Farmers buying is important. Strengthening government delivery by training NPPO is important. And we have developed a strong national convening power. Here, at this picture, you see 34 of the 36 permanent secretary of agriculture for Nigeria who came for a meeting that we organized to plan for the drill that we like to exercise in Nigeria. It was a first to have that much permanent secretaries. That shows the governing power. In addition to national governing power, we really need to work regionally. Like we say, we have to work without border. And for that reason, we are working with CORAF, with funding from the European Union to do what you see here in that project called BioRisk. We became ECOWAS Regional Center of Excellence for Transboundary Plant Pathogen that we launched in 2021. Here you see some of our facilities in Côte d'Ivoire. We are working also with ICAS in Central Africa to integrate WAVE in all the 11 countries of the community. As we see, we are using really the power of togetherness to unleash real productivity in Central and West Africa. From Africa here, we developed this big, huge network. Is this WAVE model working? Let's use a case study, diffusion and adoption of innovation. The innovation here is Nuru, this intelligent application in the phone to diagnose cassava diseases. Developed by Penn State, Google, and IT in East Africa. And here, this is data from Plant Village. I didn't do anything. I just selected the time here. And you see that there were no involvement of WAVE during this period. And Plant Village was testing in Tanzania. WAVE did the first test of Nuru in 2018. And during this period here, we were testing this application in different countries, while Penn State and the team were working actively in East Africa here. We launched our participatory surveillance using Nuru, and from the launch to date, look what's happening in Central and West Africa. Plant Village will tell you that Nuru is working. Yes, it's working. It's working because you have people on the ground. You have WAVE on the ground. If you do not believe me, if I zoom here, you will see in Guinea and Liberia, where there is no WAVE, that is not working. So we need people in the ground. You need WAVE. Because the farmers adopted so much this technology that instead of even using that only for participatory surveillance, we noticed that we are using this at most at the time of harvest to select the unaffected cuttings for the next planting season. So in addition to participatory surveillance, we are doing community phytosanitation. This is from the farmer themselves. So what we want to say is that it's important to have local leadership. That's the reason why WIV is very putting the interface here with us. Because the big laboratories, the advanced laboratories, are not equipped to work with customers. When they are on open waters like here, they can groove, they can move speedily. But when it's time to deliver the product of the research, it's a problem. We have to change the messenger, we have to change the vehicle. That's the reason why local leadership is so important. So in conclusion, local leadership is critical for the establishment of a strong plant health system. Phytopathologists, all of us here, we need to move beyond our comfort zone, the laboratories, and engage with key stakeholders to ensure efficient integration of plants into the One Health system. WIV is here. It's very an essential tool for Central and West Africa. We have a robust network of NAS working in synergy with government, a proven model that can easily be adapted to overcrop, a task force of scientists who knows the terrain, a team that is fully embedded in national system and collaborating with regional institutions. I would like to acknowledge BMGF, FCDO, the European Union, the WIV partners, the institution hosting WIV, WIV country directors and staff, but also the ICPP2023 organizing committee for inviting me. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Justin. So I'm not seeing any questions on the app, and since we are the first session, I know that maybe people aren't understanding that you can actually ask questions on your app. However, if you want to do it the old-fashioned way, which is probably the way that I would feel more comfortable, there are 2 microphones at the back of the first rows if anybody would like to answer questions. So while people are thinking about if they'd like to ask a question, there is time for a couple of questions. Thank you very much, Justin, for an incredible example of, inter-country collaboration focused on an incredibly important pathogen in the region. So, questions from anyone? Certainly, maybe I can ask. Yes. You have to get up and ask. Or alternatively, you can, I always say my children belong to the thumb generation because they can type very quickly on an app. Oh, okay, sorry. Yes, I think the mic should work.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Robin.
What a glorious presentation and of such a wonderful activity that's happening. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about how such collaboration in regions might be activated in different regions. Is it around the problem? So obviously you started with a big problem of cassava disease. Is that the thing that is the burning issue that will drive new waves?
Thank you, Robin. Yes, it's important to notice that institutional support is very key. It's very key. And we did not pick cassava, like that. It's because, like I say, cassava is a cement of society. It's so important for the region that when you say cassava, everybody you have the attention of everybody. But also, we went beyond, we are going beyond our comfort zone. We don't just publish. Scientists, we are doing a lot of leadership training to allow the scientists to be able to go out and talk to policymakers, to sell the science that we are doing, communicate the science. I've been in the US for 19 years, before moving back, deciding to move back to Africa. And I'm telling you that what I'm doing now is really rewarding because I'm allowed, I'm capable because I got the training to do that, to go out and speak. We have to sell what we do, plant pathologists. If we don't do it, it's not going to work. And by doing that, if we have institutional support of the government, of the institutions, everything else will go smoothly. We do need government, we need institutional support. And WAVE has it, because there is also this trust issue. And also, like I said, we go to the traditional rulers. And in Africa, when a king or a chief is speaking, it's way a lot. And that's what of innovation we brought. Yeah. Thank you, Robin.
So Justin, one question coming from the app. There are others. People who are looking at the app can see them. The one question is, will the WAVE program plan to address other issues on crops?
Yeah, like I said, we started with cassava and viruses because I'm a plant virologist by training. And we needed to develop a model and show that this model is working. That's what we did. And in 2021, we became now the regional center of excellence for transboundary plant diseases. So we talk about virus, bacteria, and fungus. So we expand now to other crops like banana and sweet potato, yam, cocoa. And what we really need is really expertise in bacteriology and mycology, because most of the people we have now are virologists, plant virologists.
Thank you very much. I think in the interest of time, we need to move on to our next speaker. Justin, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You can do it, yes. So I don't know if anybody has really thought about this, but we've just come through a virus pandemic, and certainly the most common human diseases are caused by viruses. So what pathogens cause the most plant diseases? And I'm hoping all of you know the answer to this question, and the answer is fungi. Fungi with an F, not a PH. And so we're moving then from cassava viruses. Clearly, cassava viruses are very important in West Africa. And our next speaker is then appropriately a bacteriologist. And Cindy will come. Ivan will introduce her.
So, thank you very much. Thank you, Mathieu, for the help. So, the next speaker is Cindy Morris. So it's quite not easy to introduce such a multifaceted person. So, Cindy Morris is a plant disease bacteriologist. She is research director at the INRAE Center in Avignon, a bit in the south. She's also a biker, also a musician, poet, etc. And so she has been working for 4 years on such odd ideas to search, to track pathogens where they were not expected to be. And she and her team found them nearly everywhere in our ecosystems. And so she has a very wide interest for plant pathology, so also for new ideas, and especially with this concept of One Health. So as you all know, plant health is quite the poor child of One Health. And so she will give us a lot of insight of the added value of One Health for plant health, so beyond being just a buzzword. Cindy, please.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Okay, firstly, I would like to thank very much the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak to you about my ideas about One Health. So this morning I'm going to take you on a historical and a philosophical journey in addition to some science. So sit back and relax and enjoy it. Okay, so we're going to start with the definition. What is One Health? It is the name of a framework to understand the epidemiology of diseases, and in particular, the root causes of disease emergence. Insight from One Health is then deployed to set up surveillance and management practices to avoid disease. Now that sounds rather straightforward, right? But One Health in particular strives to be very comprehensive. It militates for the collaboration of multiple disciplines and a wide range of stakeholders working locally, nationally, globally to attain optimal health for people, animals, and the environment, and thus sustainable societies. So the impetus for One Health perspective started in the 18th century, as Bart mentioned this morning, when the zoonotic nature of certain diseases of humans was discovered. The need for collaboration between human and veterinary medicine grew considerably in the 1970s after that, as we came to realize the origins of HIV and then Legionnaire's disease, SARS, cryptococcal meningoencephalitis, and others up to the COVID-19 pandemic. One of the common features of these disease emergences was that they all involved spillover of microorganisms from natural habitats into human habitats. This was facilitated by the growing proximity of human activities to natural or wild environments. The emergence of these diseases was exacerbated by increasing human travel and globalized trade. And the scenarios to explain these emergences drew attention to the connection between otherwise disparate environments and in particular the increasing connectedness of natural habitats with human habitats. Now, as we've heard multiple times this morning, in spite of the many initiatives and programs on One Health, frankly, plant pathologists just don't seem to be on board. Okay? And they are much bewildered by the concept of One Health and its added value for managing plant health. This is probably due, as has been mentioned, to the human and animal-centered vision of One Health and the few common targets of surveillance illustrated in these examples of logos. And the logos you've seen this morning, we all just went to internet and the same logos popped up because we didn't collaborate on choosing our logos. But whatever the explanations, if you look at the scientific literature, it indicates how little plant pathology seems to be appropriating the One Health concept. Indeed, publications on One Health that specifically addressed epidemiology and management of plant diseases and pests accounted for less than 1% of publications on One Health in the past 2 years, and the paper by Didier Andrivon and other colleagues showed the same thing for a previous period of time. However, if we look farther back into time, we could argue that the sciences of plant production were precursors of One Health. If we look into the history of plant production in Europe and North America, early in our current era that's called the Anthropocene, and I'm going to come back why I'm using this term, there was a strong understanding of the comprehensive nature of plant health and the interconnections between plant health and the environment. The Anthropocene is the era that is shaped by the multiple consequences of industrialization and urbanization, whose effects we started to see very clearly as early as the 19th century. And one of the first environmental crises of the Anthropocene was that soil fertility severely declined in Europe and North America between about 1830 and 1870. So intensive farming and rapid urbanization markedly disrupted the traditional practices of returning nutrients to the soil as wastes when people lived near their farms. Crop yields were falling while sewage from urban centers was being dumped directly into rivers. Now, this deficit of soil fertility led to a battle for resources. There were attempts to restore soil fertility by collecting human and animal bodies to make fertilizers, in particular from the battlefield of Waterloo. There aren't any remains left for this reason. Via wars and clearly blatant acts of imperialism, okay, to obtain guano and potassium and sodium nitrate. So these were things I learned about when I was reading. I was quite surprised. Now, there was public outcry about this ecological disaster from major intellectuals of the 19th century. In Les Miserables, the French writer Victor Hugo decries the wastefulness displayed in Paris by the dumping of sewage into the Seine River. He claimed that sewage was a resource more valuable than guano. In Das Kapital, the German historian and economist Karl Marx noted how wasteful it was to dump sewage into the Thames River. He explained that the conscious and rational treatment of the land as permanent communal property is an inalienable condition for the existence and reproduction of the chain of human generations. That's a really strong statement. In several publications, the German chemist Justus von Liebig argued that modern agricultural practices were a form of robbery of soil nutrients and environmental wealth. He stated that organic recycling of nutrients back to the soil was an indispensable part of a rational society with urban and agricultural components. There was public outcry because it was well known that returning human waste to the soil played a key role in sustaining agriculture for centuries. This was documented in 1911 in the book Farmers of 40 Centuries, or Permanent Agriculture in China, Korea, and Japan by Franklin H. King, who was a soil physicist at the University of Wisconsin. This concept was further promoted by the works of Sir Albert Howard in 1947 that emphasized the living bridge between soil life and health of crops, livestock, and humankind. This was based on decades of his work in India in farming. Sir Howard's work specifically led to the organic farming movement. Okay, and in the UK, this movement was spearheaded by Lady Eve Balfour, who declared, and I took this off their site of this organization, that the health of soil, plant, animal, and man is one and indivisible. Well, that's one health. I mean, right there. I put it in green. They didn't have it on their site, but anyway. So that is quite interesting for us. Today, the FAO defines organic agriculture as a holistic practice, production management system which promotes and enhances agrisystem health, including biodiversity, biological cycles, and soil biological activity. The definition includes aspects of social justice, adaptation to climate change, environmental stewardship, local production and distribution, carbon footprint, humane treatment of livestock, and the importance of pasture grazing, which are all coherent with the goals of One Health. And I encourage you to look at their website and that definition. It's very impressive, full definition. Today, we can come across inspiring publications about soil microflora as a fulcrum for One Health, and I've cited two, probably the only two right here. They describe mechanisms underlying how the health of soil, plants, animals, and humans is one and indivisible. However, they do not clearly mention that such concepts have been lost in history as agriculture moved toward efficiency, hygiene, and commodities. Okay? So, after hearing this historical diatribe, you might suspect that I propose to boost organic farming movement as the means for plant health to get on board with One Health. Okay, that could be part of a long-term vision. However, I want to emphasize here that there is added value in current One Health concepts in the short and intermediate term for plant health, and I will present details about applying One Health concepts to overcoming 4 missing or poorly developed concepts in plant disease epidemiology and management. So I have them listed here, but I will do each of them justice in the next slides. So the first concept concerns reservoirs of plant pathogens outside of agriculture. So pathogen life cycles are often incomplete stories of their life histories. You go to any book that teaches plant pathology and you will see this very clearly. For example, opportunities for dissemination to and from habitats beyond agriculture are rarely explicit. In the case of the work of my team at INRAE on Pseudomonas syringae that causes diseases on many crop species, when we looked outside of agriculture, we found many reservoirs of this bacterium. So these are some of the very wonderful places we got to visit in our search. One of our main discoveries is that the genetic diversity of Pseudomonas syringae outside of agriculture is greater than within agricultural settings. Furthermore, potentially pathogenic strains are everywhere. We determined this with host range testing in the laboratory with strains from all the habitats where we found Pseudomonas syringae. And finally, when we compared whole genomes of strains isolated from crops and those from environmental reservoirs, we could not distinguish strains based on their origin. This is a strong indication that there is mixing and movement of strains among habitats. Now, there have been other reports of reservoirs outside of agriculture, and here are a few examples of fungi and bacteria. Okay? Of course, these reservoirs can simply be stocks of inoculum for epidemics. However, we also need to ask if these habitats, if these are habitats that actually drive the evolution of pathogens and help them maintain or acquire traits useful for pathogenicity. And that leads us to the next concept, inspired by One Health, that virulence factors can also be adaptations for survival in the environment, independent of being pathogens. Now, this phenomenon is well known for a wide range of human and animal pathogens. It's often called dual use, okay? And these are the ones listed in the left-hand column on this table. These pathogens all have environmental habitats where they deploy efflux pumps, secretion systems, melanins, exopolysaccharides, et cetera, to survive stresses of the physical environment and aggression from other microorganisms. When they encounter humans or animals, they can already be equipped to be effective, versatile virulence factors without having co-evolved with their new mammalian host. Okay, and so this is the basis of numerous emergences of human diseases. Now, I think that you all are aware that the central framework in plant pathology to investigate the life history and evolutionary trajectory of plant pathogens is co-evolution with plants. And the dominance of this framework has not facilitated questions about how virulence traits could emerge outside of interaction with plants and with crops in particular. And this constrains our capacity to anticipate emergences of new pathogens. So several studies on wheat pathogens have shown how effectors are involved in niche protection and defense against mycoparasites, for example. So the two listed here. Furthermore, an overview of effector repertoires of non-symbiotic saprophytic fungi revealed that they are indistinguishable from their symbiotic relatives. This suggests that effectors are probably a means for fungi to manipulate their environment and not simply their plant hosts. The next concept is how to estimate the potential risk of microbial lines before they emerge as pathogens. So for viruses causing zoonoses, a predictive framework based on various phenotypes is being developed. Now, this is a critical tool for risk analysis for future outbreaks of SARS viruses, for example. Okay, so they're using various phenotypes to predict. For plant pathogens, we have the luxury of being able to do artificial inoculations to estimate if environmental microorganisms have pathogenic potential. And it's something that our colleagues in human medicine can't even dream of doing, okay? So we should do this, but we need to be careful about our experimental design. And in particular, we should be wary of what I call the paradigm of pathotypes. And so what do I mean by this? What's the paradigm of pathotypes? If we tested a set of microbial strains against a set of plant species, the predominant paradigm of pathotypes would lead us to expect a graph like this, with restricted host ranges that could be delimited into pathotypes. However, with a group of my colleagues led by Benoit Maury, who's attending this meeting, when we analyzed, they gave us host ranges data for multiple models. We analyzed host range data for 12 combinations of plant pathogens and hosts, and all combinations revealed statistically significant overlapping continua of host ranges with very few distinct pathotypes. Okay. This suggests that if we intend to predict pathogenic potential, then the concept of the structure of host range capacity in plant pathogens needs to be revised. And you can attend the concurrent session C7.5 about pathivars on Thursday for more details. The fourth concept from One Health concerns spillover of pathogens between reservoirs that are far away from each other. So quarantine inspection at borders is currently the main way that we monitor this risk. However, could we also predict or strategically survey the natural processes of long-distance dissemination by wind, precipitation, and surface waters? This is a bit of a challenge. So this has been a goal of two projects that I've been coordinating, funded by the French National Research Agency. So these are my acknowledgements here, and you see a photo of all my collaborators. And they have been, the On-Air has been very helpful in getting us to advance this subject, helping us advance this subject. We have two approaches. Firstly, if there's a strong hypothesis about the trajectory of dissemination, such as via rivers, the obvious movement, we have simply tried to map the abundance of pathogens by direct quantification of their populations. Okay. So as an example, we have done this in an RNA project for Pseudomonas syringae and for soft rot enterics for the entire catchment of the Durance River in southeastern France, which is used to irrigate a lot of important cropping regions. On the graph, so each bar on the graph represents the population density at each season over 2 years. Its log bacterial populations per milliliter goes from 10 to the 1, so 10 to the 10 to the 6. And this revealed the strong regularity of occurrence of Pseudomonas syringae throughout the catchment, so throughout these 21 different sites, whereas the presence of soft rot enterics was much more site-dependent. So now our next step is then to propose surveillance strategies that takes this into account. For movement via the atmosphere, our second approach, the trajectories are not so obvious. Okay? And atmospheric concentrations of target organisms are often below the detection limits of most samplers, so it's really impossible to go out and observe them in their movement. And so for these cases, we decided rather than to watch them move, we just want to describe the highways that they could possibly take. So what are the most probable highways? Right? So for this, we have automated the calculation of trajectories of air masses that you can get on HighSplit, which is a tool from the NOAA server in the US. We then map the trajectories across regions and assess their dynamics, and then from this, we can calculate the intensity of connectedness of potential sources with various geographic sites, and then by superposing it on geographic regions. So here's a couple of illustrations here. So the manuscript describing this automation of these new massive calculations, I mean, they're massive calculations, millions of trajectories, is now under review, but it's still accessible on a server. And we have also developed a web application to facilitate access for this automation called TropoLinks. So for details, I suggest that you quickly go sign up for those 4 places that are still left to meet with Samuel Suberon and meet the experts and talk to him about this, because he knows very well this tool and will tell you about many of its applications. He's the main developer of the tool. And then there are numerous applications of these tools to assess atmospheric trajectories and connectedness, and here are a couple of examples. We could look at the pertinence of estimated trajectories and enhance them with filters for plant phenology, periods of spore release, or the flight of insect vectors, for example, or conditions that are favorable for pathogen survival, and eliminate trajectories that don't seem to be pertinent. Once the networks of plausible dissemination are estimated, surveillance plans can be developed by optimally positioning observatories according to network properties. And this is one of the works of Andrea Radici, who also is among the experts that you can interact with. And he has some very exciting things to say about these tools. These networks can also be used to ask geopolitical questions, such as when, especially in the case when pathogens are disseminated across political borders, as in the case of wheat rust, for example. And the question would be, what are the trade-offs of each country assuring their own surveillance or collaborating? Are there trade-offs in terms of the amount of work and how you would share the information? So you can map that with these network analyses. But now here's the big question. So we're talking about, is there anything in One Health useful for plant health? But then we need to ask the question, are we useful to the One Health concept? Okay, so I want to go into this a little bit. So is there anything that we have to offer? Firstly, we need to remark that plant pathology is an inherently interdisciplinary field. Almost all of you know about working interdisciplinarily, listening to people talk about how thermocouples work or how your growth chamber is regulated, whatever, or molecular biology, et cetera. So therefore, to meet the interdisciplinary challenges of One Health, plant health scientists bring additional competences for filling knowledge gaps that are common to all One Health strategies, namely, that's representation and accessibility of data and knowledge, multi-actor approaches to surveillance and prophylaxis, knowledge and inference, modeling and pattern recognition, and complex decision processes to manage health of plants, humans, and animals. And you can read the details in the paper we have in Plant Pathology on One Health. But can you guess the other thing we have to offer? What other competence do we have to offer for One Health that is missing? And that is, plant health managers are the main stewards of soil quality. We do this, not the veterinarians, not the doctors, okay? And management of soil quality can target microorganisms that influence the health of plants, animals, and humans, as was brought out in the paper by Banerjee and Vanderhedge, where they talk about all of the different ways that these different microorganisms transit via soil. And so this is a role that we have to offer. So to conclude, One Health was first presented with the original title, One World, One Health. Okay? And in preparing my talk, I really was surprised to learn that not only does One Health have something to add to the value of plant health, but plant health certainly has something to add to the value of One Health. The problem is, in what world can we do this? So come back to the notion of one world. In what world can we do One Health? And this is where we can take a deep breath and go, oh my, okay? And so I think that you would agree with me, I hope you agree with me, that we need to make major changes in our world to be able to do One Health, and we need to retrieve the resources that we are wasting, and they're well illustrated in this document. We know you don't need to talk about them directly, but you know what I'm talking about. We need to close the poop loop. We need to get these resources that we are wasting that contribute to soil fertility in particular. And among all the different partners we can list that should participate in One Health, there is a role for civil engineers. So with that, I would like to say, One World, One Health. Many questions, please.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Are there any questions direct in the audience? There are already many on the application.
Go to the microphone, this microphone. Lisha.
Cindy, fantastic. Thank you very much for all the stimulating ideas. I was very interested by your, which I will call at this stage speculation, about effectors that interacted with the environment rather than just with the plant-host interaction, because we're all studying it from that direct interaction. And I thought it was fascinating that when you do genomic analysis, you see there's a lot of effectors that we don't find roles for. And the concept or the idea that they would interact with the environment to help. Could you expand on that? Is that pure speculation? Or
no, it's not. My understanding of what I've read has been said, the role of the type 3 secretion system, for example, is to, in the case of bacteria, to interact with eukaryotic cells. Well, they're not just plants. There's amoeba. Bacteria consumed by amoeba all the time, and other organisms, nematodes, and so that's part of their environment. We see it in human pathogens, perhaps not just effectors, but all of the so-called virulence factors like melanins, diversity of toxins with broad spectra. These things there's selective, positive selection pressure for them to be maintained outside of their direct interaction with plants. And furthermore, can anyone really believe that the life history of microorganisms is driven by crops that interest humans and nothing else? You know what I mean? I mean, it's a problem of our conception of the evolutionary history of these organisms is well beyond agriculture, well beyond their interaction with plants for many of these. And so they might be carrying these residual things. So the answer is yes, there is. It's not just speculation, but there is not enough literature to support it, not enough direct experiments to support it. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Cindy, for bringing that together. And I think the link from the plant holobiont to soil diversity and to plant health and environmental health was really good. So, but what I missed was a link from the plant to humans. And this is, I think, also the idea of the One Health concept, how we see it as microbiologists. And there is a link, and this is already well established, because the plant microbiome itself contributes a lot to human health. On one hand, I mean, if you look
gut
on
microflora,
yeah, in the beneficial way, but also from the pathogens perspective, because we have the foodborne pathogens, so the food safety concept, which is well established in plant pathology, is well known, but there is another very problematic branch which is very often ignored, and these are the healthcare associated infections, and they are also coming from the plants, and especially from the depleted plant microbiome, which we have due to intense agriculture.
But I think some of those things have been pointed out. I guess I just wanted to be a little bit more, go beyond what people have already been saying about the link between humans and human health and plants. So yes, thank you for your added remark.
Okay. We have online a very, very critical question by David Guest, who asked you and all of us, how do we improve recognition of transdisciplinary One Health research by funding agencies and disciplinary journals?
Well, it's a whole problem of interdisciplinarity, okay? I think it's the difficulty, and I think the first obstacle in interdisciplinary work, from my own personal experience, is you just don't have a clue what that economist can do for you, right? I mean, or the social scientist or someone outside of your field, you just don't have a clue what they can do for you. And so that's a little bit of our problem, is to sort of find the way to open a discussion where you can discover what's interesting for them in your work and what could be interesting vice versa in your work for them. And that is a big difficulty, because we have these silos of teaching. So I would say, don't worry about publication success and how beautiful your publication is. Work hard on trying to solve big problems. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cindy. So now we change gears a little bit. For this session, we specifically felt that we needed to have somebody from the Food and Agricultural Organization to talk to us. And Descartes KOUMBA has been volunteered, and we're very happy that he's here in person to talk to us, and really appreciate him taking the time. Descartes is a plant engineer, so comes from a slightly different perspective, but very much a focus on plant production and agriculture. Descartes, thank you very much. I think it's this. Yeah, let's just see if we can get this going. Oh, there we are. Thanks, Melanie.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Brenda, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here and to thank the organizing committee to invite the FAO and the IPPC to attend this very important event. My presentation will explain you why FAO is taking care of the antimicrobial use and resistance in agriculture, and also to show you the effort of FAO in the overall agriculture, the tools we use, and what is specifically done on the plant health sector. And we will complete by presenting a new study conducted, an ongoing study on the IMR on phytosanitary context. Why FAO is taking care of the antimicrobial resistance is because, as you know, antibiotics and fungicides are used to prevent and cure the disease in human, animals, and plants. And it's a big issue at the world level in terms of health. And some data we have received show that 5 million of deaths per year could be associated to IMR, and 1.27 million are directly attributable to IMR. And as you can see on the screen, the quantity of product used is very important, and we need really to care of that. FAO is also invest in the IMR subject because this contributes to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals especially the SDG 3 on good health and well-being. But there is also a lot of cross-cutting linkage to be done with other goals as it presented on the screen. In the overall agriculture, it's important to highlight that since 2015, FAO, WHO, and World Organization on Animal Health, WOHA, adopted a global action plan on antimicrobial resistance. And at the FAO conference in 2015 and 2019, the FAO reiterated the need really to act urgently on the management of antimicrobial. And FAO developed its own action plan. The first one was initiated in 2016 until 2020. And now we are implementing the 2021-2025 action plan, which is the extension of this first action plan. This is not a political or strategic document, but it really gives guidance on how FAO could support member states to implement the IMR approach by strengthening the governance, promoting responsible use of this product, enabling good practices, strengthening surveillance and research, and most important, to really raise awareness, especially in plant health. In response to the request from the member state, FAO will launch soon the Rhino Farm, which is an initiative to reduce the needs of antimicrobial products in the agri-food system. In terms of data management, FAO is fully committed in the global integrated system for surveillance and IMR-IMU. Where, for example, we have the WHO contribute through the glass for the human health, Animus for the animal health, and also for us as FAO, we contribute for animal and food. And this is done through the International FAO Antimicrobial Resistance Monitoring INFARM. INFARM is currently a prototype, and we just try to develop an IT platform to help countries to collect, analyze, use, and report on IMR data. The idea is to have something for countries, but also with facility to give the global information on IMR for general public. And this process will also help us to contribute to the TISA, which is the platform on which we contribute on IMR data with WOHA and the WHO. As I said before, the INFARM is currently at prototypes, and we started with 28 countries. But this year we have completed the pilot, and we expect at the end of in December this year and also beginning of next year to issue a call for data on IMR. This will help us to map the data sources and also define a data model. The perspective is for the future is also to add the IMU in crop, because currently what we are doing is only limited to animal and food data. To focus on the plant health area, based on the Global Action Plan of FAO, the Plant Production and Protection Division of FAO NSP developed its own work plan to really address 4 key areas. This will help us to collect data and evidence on IMR, also to reinforce the installation of IMR, reinforce capacity and raise awareness, because this is a very key issue, especially in plant health. And this activity will help to provide data on the quantification of IMU in the use of in crops, but also to quantify, this was a question just before my presentation, to understand better the transition of IMR between animals, human, and crops. And for that, it's already presented by Sydney that there is a big challenge in terms of data availability, and we are trying to really address this, this challenge. And also another challenge is related to the risk assessment. As for this kind of study, they need a lot of high-level laboratory resources, and sometimes the developing countries, they don't have all the resources to conduct this kind of studies. Something very important is to highlight here is that since 2005, WHO has a list of critical antimicrobial products for human medicine. And since 2007, the OIE, newly named HOA, has a list of antimicrobial very importance. But we're still missing a list related for plant health. And that could be a way to move forward for FAO. And the ultimate goal could be to have a sort of one health list compiling the data of WHO, HOA, and FAO as integrated approach. Now, I will just show you what we are doing at the level of the IPPC. And it's obvious that the impact of plant pests is well known. The FAO data can show that 40% of losses are generated by pests, and this is around 220 billion of trade agriculture annually. And this can help you to understand the work of the IPPC, which is an international treaty for the cooperation between countries to protect global plant resources from the introduction and spread of plant pests in order to really preserve the food security, biodiversity, as well as facilitate safe trade. In terms of organization, the IPPC is governed by the Commission on Phytosanitary Measures, which is the CPM. And CPM is the meeting of contacting parties to discuss and provide guidance on the key plant health issue at global level, but also to adopt the standards. And you can see that we have at least 184 contacting parties, and we are supported by 10 regional plant protection organizations. And recently, just 4 months ago, the CPM noted what was said by the previous speaker, that there is a low level of awareness in terms of implementation of One Health, and also a low profile of plant health in the overall One Health debate. And they recognize the need for us to understand well the impact of IMR in the phytosanitary context. That's the reason that the request to the IPPC Secretariat to conduct a very simple and short survey to countries to ask them, firstly, to identify what are the products they use, on which crop, to manage which pests and the quantity. And the second step will be to have to dig really on the resistance aspect next year with the positive respondent, and also to have a separate study on fungicide. These are the preliminary results. We are still ongoing, and we just think that it could be interesting for us to share with this first result. Up to now, 56 countries have responded to the survey. We can see that the respondents are come from all the regions on the planet. And from this short sample, we can see that 18 countries have confirmed using antimicrobial products. And this is quite very interesting to see that we have provided them some list of antimicrobial products, and the chart just highlights how many times each product has been confirmed by being used by each positive respondent countries, with a very high profile to streptomycin and kesugamycin. In terms of crops, contacting parties, they have confirmed that the use of antimicrobial are approximately 35 species of fruit, vegetables, and cereals. And the top 3 crops are tomato, potato, and rice. This slide is just to show you on which crops the different antimicrobial products have been used. And you can see that it's a very large variety of crops, and this is very important to highlight that there's a need to work on that. In terms of use, the respondent highlighted the fact that depending on the level of agriculture in the country, This product can be used alone or in combination. And we can see that depending on what is the kind of use, the consequences are quite different. And we can see also that the volume of product use is very variable from those having a low agricultural system for 0.5 ton a year and 13,000 ton a year for those having a large activity in agriculture. To summarize what we are doing at an FAO level for the plant protection division, it's really that you can see that we are starting to really be fully involved on that, and we are trying to collect all the literature available on IMU and marine crop because it's missing, and also to map the stakeholders to establish an expert network. We also try to increase the collaboration between the different units of the FAO, because, for example, this presentation was developed in collaboration with the NSP, which is the FAO Department for Agriculture, but also the International Plant Protection Convention to really produce more data in order to raise awareness during the meeting of our stakeholders. And as I said before, one of the tasks we want to achieve is really to have a One Health list on antimicrobial products in collaboration with WHO and WHA. As a takeaway message is, it's important for us as FAO to still continue to promote the integrated pest management, because we think that if the action is before this will reduce the impact of pests, and also to prevent the introduction and spread of plant pests by the implementation of the international standard on phytosanitary measures. We also have an important tool we use at the IPPC level, which is the PCE. It's an evaluation to identify the weakness of a phytosanitary system. And during this evaluation, one of the key components is to update the phytosanitary legislation. And in this framework, we can use the opportunity to see how we can include the IMR issue in this process. Also, to help countries to develop and assist countries to international code of conduct for pesticide management. And we still promote the ownership of the FAO pesticide resistance toolkit, especially in developing countries. Thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you very much. I can see we have one question that has been entered onto the app. I don't know if anybody in the audience would like to make their way. I can see somebody coming down, but I don't know if you're going to ask a question. Not. Descartes. So the question on the app is, surveys of antimicrobial use in fruit and vegetable crops was done by FAO in collaboration with universities in 2018 and 2019. Have these results been published? So I think this speaks maybe to the slide that you presented, and certainly I'm quite amazed at the antimicrobials that have been used.
Yes, I think that what we try to do now, because as I said before, we really start to really have a full commitment on this topic, and we try to collect all the data available at FAO level to really compile all this data. And what we'll do, for example, with this ongoing survey on IMR is really to discuss with FAO to see how we could really promote. But the idea now, it's really the lack of resources, because the low profile of IMR, the consequence is that there's discussion on budget allocation. Budget is allocated for all over the topics, but not only on IMR. And we have a very important meeting in March next year with the CPM. And we invite all the contacting parties to discuss this result, to see how we can raise this issue at a higher level, and then have more budget to allocate and support the data. But we have also a study on IMR in horticulture, and this we have a consultant just hired to work on this data, and we expect them to be published soon.
Okay, so it will be published soon. So I'm not seeing, oh, yeah, we have another question. No, that's not the one that's not a question that pertains, I think, to your talk. Other questions from anybody? We have a hand in the back. Thanks very much. That mic should work. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a very, very interesting talk. I was actually quite horrified about what you revealed about antimicrobial agents in use in plant pathology, but that's another system. What I wanted to remind everybody is that we do have not only a major problem with fungicide, insecticide, and herbicide resistance worldwide, but there is already a worldwide system for tracking that. And I think it's quite interesting that actually that too could be brought into the FAO remit. I don't know if you possibly are aware and just didn't mention it.
Yes, as I say in my presentation, that I think that you as a pathologist, you have more data than us because we rely on the institutional data provided by countries. And we just try to use them as a baseline data to have more resources. For example, we have good collaboration with the European Plant Protection Organization. And for us, the first step is really to raise the profile based on the data we provided by the countries, and then have more resources to support what is done. And I think that I take this as a very good contribution to have a look on this available tool, extending beyond the fungicide and the bacteria. Thank you.
So my sense as I'm getting here is, an invitation from FAO to negotiate, to talk with them about providing them with additional data, and Descartes is making that invitation that hopefully means you're going to get lots of emails, and that discussion will be carried on. So I'm going to then ask that we go on to our next speaker, Descartes. Thank you so much. While Ivan gets the presentation up, I noticed that there has actually been quite a bit of engagement of people answering some of the questions on the app, and I'd like to encourage that and encourage that discussion. Not everybody is identifiable by their questions. I see some people's names are there, others are not. But I'm maybe re-evaluating the usefulness of the app, that maybe this allows the discussion to go beyond just the session.
Okay, thank you. So for next and last speaker for this session, I have the pleasure to invite Mrs. Melanie MARK-SHADBOLT, who is an indigenous environmental sociologist from New Zealand. So she is a co-founder, trustee, and CEO of the Tira Whakamataki Foundation. You will correct me if I'm wrong, and she will enlighten us about a quite not very widespread but critical topic about the empowering of indigenous perspective in response to invasive pathogens, which are really important in New Zealand. Please, thank you very much.
Fine. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Tēnā koutou ko hui mai nei, e mihi ana ki ngā rangatira katoa, ko tēnei taku mihi ki ngā tangata whenua o inei rohi. Tēnā koutou. Ko tararua te pai maunga, engari I whānau mai I raro I a ruapehu. Ko te roto o Wairarapa moana oku wai, ko rua mahanga toku awa, engari ki te taha o te waimakariri au I noho ana. Ko taki timu te waka, Ko Ngāti Kahanunu ki Wairarapa te hapu, ko Papawai te marae, ko Ngāti Kahanunu rātou ko Ngāti Parau, te aroa, te atiawa, Ngāti Raukawa, Tūwharetoa, Whakatohia, Rangatāne, Oku Iwi, He Uri Au, Ata Macintosh, me gun, hoki, ko Melanie MARK-SHADBOLT, tōku ingoa. My name is Mel, and I am the CEO and one of the co-founders of Te Tira Whakamataki, a small environmental not-for-profit based in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Te Tira Whakamataki translates loosely as the watchful ones. I have, as you said, a background in environmental sociology, having been an academic with a number of people here at Lincoln University in the Bioprotection Research Centre for 11 years before doing a stint as the Deputy Secretary for the Ministry for the Environment in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I've recently been liberated from that to do things that are of importance to me. This is where I come from. Thank you to the organising committee and the leaders of the ICPP for inviting me to present today. As a non-plant pathologist and the first time ICPP attendee, I'm really excited to be here to talk about how we empower Indigenous perspectives in the response to invasive pathogens. As an Indigenous researcher, policymaker and political actionist, that's a nice way of saying activist, who hails from these tribes circled here, and these mountains and these waters and these ancestral homes, I believe it's important to seize any and all opportunities to elevate the voices, the worldviews, the experiences of Indigenous peoples, to include their perspectives and responses to the management of diseases, pests that impact our flora and fauna. Why? Because we need you to open the doors to your institutions, your labs, your societies, to allow space for Indigenous researchers, communities, their views and their knowledge to come in and enrich the plant pathology discipline in order to save our plants, our planet, and our people. And you need us to challenge the unsustainable systems, to rebalance conversations about planetary health, and to bring to the table knowledge you most likely don't have access to or an ability to understand if you do stumble across it. So unlike the previous speakers who took you on science journey, my talk is more of a political one and has some science scattered in there, and in fact it's probably a more sporadic journey of my mind, and will go wherever it goes depending on what flows. Almost 30 years ago, politicians and tens of thousands of eco-warriors gathered in Brazil for the Earth Summit. Government leaders from 168 countries signed up on the Convention on Biological Diversity, promising to address the decline of the Earth's living systems. In 2010, leaders agreed to the 20 targets, which they hoped would see a 2020 world in which pressures on biodiversity are reduced and ecosystems are restored. In 2019, leading scientists warned that humans were in jeopardy from accelerating decline of the Earth's natural life support systems. And in 2020, the UN revealed that the world's governments had failed to meet a single target to stem biodiversity loss in the previous decade. That same year, a WWF report revealed populations of mammals, birds, amphibians, reptiles, and fish fell by more than 2/3 in the last 5 decades, and warned that our planet was flashing red warning signs of vital natural system failure. Also in 2020, IPBES released a report highlighting the clear links between global health pandemics and biodiversity and climate crises, noting specifically that changes in land use, the expansion and intensification of agriculture, and the trade and consumption of wildlife disrupt ecosystems, promote proximity between humans and wildlife, livestock and humans, and thus the pathogens they carry. In 2021, the Global Assessment Report on Disaster Risk Reduction noted that despite communities and commitments, requirements to build resilience to tackle climate change and create sustainable development pathways, current societal, political, and economic choices were doing the reverse. On top of all that happy news, numerous governments have noted that climate change and biodiversity loss are changing national security risks. the impacts of which are far-reaching and may exacerbate existing stresses, contributing to poverty, environmental degradation, and political instability, thus providing enabling environments for terrorist activity across the globe and contributing to the breakdown in established codes of conduct and rules-based order. Collectively, these reports and others warn not only that human activity in combination with other factors is creating a biodiversity crisis, but that it is also causing climate change, and that climate change, as you all know, influences natural disasters and increases the risks of other threats like pandemics, biological invasions, and social disorder. So as the world emerges from the COVID pandemic, as people start moving across the globe again, forgetting the lessons that nature taught us during the lockdowns, and as the Northern Hemisphere experiences its hottest summer and wildfires spread across the globe, we as scholars and learned people understand that future pandemics will emerge more often. They will spread more rapidly, do more damage to the world's economy, and kill more people than COVID-19 unless there is a deep reassessment and transformation of the relationship between humans and nature, and of the unsustainable consumption practices that are leading to our biodiversity loss, to climate change, and to the emergence of pandemics, pests, and diseases. We know that the lines between disasters, diseases, biodiversity loss, and social cohesion are gone. So, like you, I know that now more than ever we need new solutions to address these complex environmental and human issues. Solutions that are holistic in nature, inclusive and future-focused, that are founded on interconnectedness and respect for and reconnection of people to nature. One Health is in part an attempt to do that, to integrate, as you've heard, and unify the human, animal, and environmental health sectors in order to create new solutions. For Indigenous communities, though, the One Health approach is not new. It's not even old. It's ancient. And it's also potentially limited and constrained, missing the deep understanding of the intricate relationships that exist between the natural world and the human communities that rely on it, and importantly, the delicate balance within and across ecosystems that Indigenous environmental technicians work to maintain as stewards of their lands and waters. This knowledge of the world and its ecosystems can and does complement scientific data, with chronological and landscape-specific detail that is crucial for verifying environmental theories, including climate change. And it is my view that by incorporating Indigenous perspectives in our responses to biological invasions or invasive pathogens, we tap into this unique repository of insights that can inform our management strategies in profound ways that are holistic and sustainable, creating solutions that are not only addressing the immediate threats posed by invasive species, but also considering the long-term effects on local ecosystems and the well-being of Indigenous communities. As an example, this slide here shows how many Maori and the Indigenous people of New Zealand and other Indigenous peoples understand the natural world to have been created. It is, if you like, a taxonomic framework outlining how trees, plants, rocks, stones, and people are related to the planet, to the elements, and to the Big Bang. From right to left, it walks us through the creation of our universe, to the creation of our elements, to their creation of the trees and the plants, the rocks and the stones. Why is it important? Well, it's a holistic view of nature that recognizes the interconnections of all living things, whether they are defined as living in the traditional sense or not. And it is a way of us understanding how our environment is connected in a familial way. It also promotes the respect for nature that's founded on, as I said, those familial relationships that exist in nature, encouraging responsible resource management and discouraging overexploitation of our family members. More simply, this framework highlights the relationships that exist in nature, just as they exist in your family tree. So if I was to look for a solution to a disease in one of these plants, I might very well find that solution within one of its close relationships. One of its close relations, its family members on this taxonomic framework. Or I might determine that the plant's well-being is being impacted by a loss of family members in its immediate ecosystem, and that might include a loss of the people in the ecosystem. If you want to learn more about how Indigenous understandings of the familial relationship between species is informing and guiding the response to current plant diseases in Aotearoa, New Zealand, then I strongly encourage you to head to Thursday's session on the social and cultural dimensions of international forest health, that's C7.6, and listen to our elders speak about how they are working to protect one of our significant and sacred trees in Aotearoa, New Zealand, from a devastating phytophthora, using their understanding of the connections between trees and plants, trees and whales, trees and people. If you want to Google another example of how Indigenous knowledge about this culturally significant tree is guiding research, then you can look up the work of Dr. Monica Girth and Professor Amanda Black. There you will learn that biochemistry and Māori knowledge are working together to investigate how to stop phytophthora spreading through the soil using native plants that disrupt the honing ability of the pathogen. What's exciting about this research is that our elders and our experts have been able to reduce the innovation timeline by quickly identifying the familial plants that may offer immunity or disrupt the zoospores. The alternative would have been scientists traipsing through the bush looking for companions or options for testing for more than likely years, versus the months it took them with the guidance of Indigenous knowledge holders leading that work. Additionally, there's some really inspiring Indigenous researchers here that you can introduce yourself to. If they're brave enough, they may stick their hands up so you can see them. On Thursday, you'll meet some in the session, and again tonight, you'll have the opportunity to meet some. And there are some innovative programs happening in Aotearoa, New Zealand. One in particular is known as New Zealand's Biological Heritage National Science Challenge, and it's a government investment aimed at reducing the decline of our biodiversity, and it has a commitment to investing in Māori researchers, Māori leaders, Māori communities, and importantly, Māori knowledge holders and their aspirations. It is, we think, world leading in investing in Indigenous researchers. I'm sure across the globe there are numerous examples of Indigenous or traditional approaches to plant pathogens or biological invasions that are finding real success at place. Justin talked about one earlier, WAVE. But why aren't they actively being picked up by broader research programs and investments or in our environmental and food management systems? And why aren't they widely known and being shared at events like this? My view and the view of many other Indigenous people is that current approaches to conservation, environmental management, research, and the activities that fall under those themes, including invasive pests and disease management or One Health, are not fit for purpose and have been developed in a manner that inadvertently led to the oppression and marginalisation of Indigenous peoples and sometimes local communities. This is most evident in two spaces. The first is the separation of humans and nature, and the second is the unspoken view that people in areas colonised are inferior in every way to their colonisers. The first, the separation of humans and nature, asserts that wilderness and civilization are opposites, and that civilization is better and superior to nature. It stems in part from that Christian view of the world, which elevates the importance of humans over nature, and in part it stems from capitalism. The separation of humans and nature has contributed to, whether we want to admit it or not, to the creation of nature reserves, national parks, and eco-sanctuaries. Areas devoid of people, places where rare animal species and plants are protected, sometimes via barriers and guards from predators, including humans. This approach to conservation has led to the militarisation and fortification of conservation and the forced displacement of Indigenous communities from their ancestral lands in the name of creating protected areas. It's also contributed to the labelling of species as invasive and bad, and to open dialogue about their eradication, something that sits uncomfortably with many Indigenous peoples, and something I may come back to in a minute. If you're still unclear about the link of this to white supremacy, racism, and the work that you do and I do, then think about this. National parks across the globe have been created by removing, sometimes violently, the Indigenous peoples and the communities who have lived on those lands for thousands of years, and often for the establishment of, as I said, protected areas for game hunting or conservation. Similarly, many of our large conservation organisations, our research organisations, our government agencies, those who may be funding us or in part of our programs, are closely linked to racist and colonial thinking. They have breached human rights and discriminated against Indigenous peoples as they roll out these programs. In 2019, the brutal violence and human rights abuses by national park rangers in several countries, including Nepal and India, Congo, Cameroon, Central Africa, were outed by news media, particularly the use of heavy armed rangers, whose military training and equipment was co-financed by the WWF. They carried out violent attacks on local people and caused many evictions and destructions of homes and other things that are probably not so nice to talk about today, all under the guise of fighting poaching and creating eco-sanctuaries and safaris. This is relevant to plant pathology and invasive species. You may doubt it, but it is, because it is this view and this approach that is the foundation of the systems that we all operate in, be they environmental management, forest management, plant protection, conservation, or research. The history of research itself, as you will know, is arguably worse, but we won't go there today. I share this statement from the 5th World Park Congress held in South Africa in 2003 with you because it sums up better and more succinctly than I can what is a recurring problem for First Nations and Aboriginals and Indigenous peoples across the globe. The declaration of protected areas on their territories in order to protect the biodiversity that they are already protecting better than governments and industries. It has strong language in it. It notes violations, displacement, loss and impoverishment, and that should not be lost on us. If you want to understand Indigenous experiences of conservation and approaches to environmental management, these 3 sentences are a really good starter and probably all that you need. The second space, if you recall, argues that people in areas colonised are inferior in every way to their colonisers, typically people from this continent. This view asserts that these often non-Christian cultures, and with their backward and irrational idealisation of nature as a living and sentient being, are godless, wild, primitive and dangerous, and perhaps not even human. And those people need to be saved and civilised, which includes confiscating their lands, their language and their culture. The brutal destruction of Indigenous culture is linked intimately again to colonisation, and it elevates these beliefs that we must subdue the earth and that nature is an object or a resource gifted to us. And it also reinforces the view that Western knowledge systems, including their sciences and their keepers, are superior. It downplays the importance of local people and local knowledge. We assert that there is no one better placed to inform research and systems about protecting ecosystems, plants and trees, than the people who live on or have lived on those landscapes for centuries. Furthermore, the inclusion of Indigenous voices in our response to biological invasions fosters a sense of empowerment and ownership amongst these communities. Acknowledging their expertise demonstrates respect for their role as custodians of the land. By engaging Indigenous peoples as active participants in decision-making processes, we honour their rights and contribute to the preservation of their cultural heritage. This approach not only respects diversity, but it also enhances the effectiveness of our conservation efforts by drawing upon the enthusiasm and commitment of those who are deeply invested in the well-being of their territories. This benefits Indigenous perspectives, and it extends beyond environmental and cultural dimensions of forest health. By collaborating with Indigenous communities, we also create opportunities for shared learning and mutual growth. Our scientific knowledge can be enriched by the traditional wisdom that has stood the test of time, while Indigenous communities can access modern resources and techniques that complement their practices. This exchange focuses and fosters the synergies that propel us towards more innovative, effective and sustainable solutions. And as we navigate the challenge of biological invasions, let us recognise the invaluable contributions that Indigenous perspectives bring to the table by partnering with these communities. We can pave the way together, Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities, for holistic, culturally sensitive and ecologically sound responses to invasive species. The benefits of this collaboration can ripple far beyond conservation and influence policy making and foster empowerment and nurturing of cross-cultural understanding. Let us seize this opportunity to forge a new path towards harmonious coexistence between humanity and nature, where the diversity of knowledge and traditions is celebrated and harnessed for the greater good. Here, we see Indigenous communities doing what they do best: innovate to protect their environments, their lands, their plants, their waterways. We see Indigenous communities creating uwhi, traditional woven mats, to protect their lakes from invasive weeds. We see Indigenous knowledge holders creating traditional medicines for their trees' health. We see Indigenous knowledge holders releasing species into new environments to protect them. And we see the revitalisation of traditional practices in our freshwater ways to protect our koura, what you may call freshwater lobster. I wish to conclude, if I have time, I hope I do, by noting that people need to repair their relationship with Papatuanuku, or Mother Earth. We need reconciliation with each other, with our past, with our stories, and with our environment. The rivers, the mountains, they are our family. They will tell us how to look after each other. While there is a growing recognition for the great value of Indigenous knowledge, and we feel appreciated and seen increasingly in the science space, there is still work to do. We see more inclusion of Indigenous knowledge holders and practices in disaster spaces like fire management. We need to see more inclusion in the environmental research space, including plant pathology. The real change the Earth so desperately needs must come from us, from our elders, from our ancestors, from our ways of being. Nature is calling us to bring justice, peace, equality to all peoples, and Native peoples have insight into how to do that. So the door is open. You need to invite us in. And finally, before I go, I want to note that tonight, in this very room, there is a roundtable on getting rights right. It aims to discuss the underpinning issues and opportunities in plant pathology when engaging with and impacting the rights of Indigenous peoples, First Nations, and local communities. This roundtable is open to all conference attendees from all backgrounds and will provide a safe and inclusive space for this important conversation. Kia ora tātou. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Melanie. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but I think you will have a lot of questions to ask, but you can ask them during the roundtable proposed by Melanie. It's free.
So I encourage everybody to please join Melanie this evening.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Kia maura, kia maura, kia maura, o te mana motu ake te aroha. Kia maura, o te mana motu ake te aroha. E ia, ie, whakarongo te toko. E ia, ie, ie. Wahine mā, wahine mā, wahine mā, o maranga mai ki a kaha. Wahine mā, o maranga mai ki a kaha. E ia. tamahora. Tamama, tamatu, tamatu, tamora. Ia, ie, whakarongo te toko. Ia, ie.
So to finish off this very interesting session, Mathias CHOQUER is going to tell us something about some posters that have been prepared by a group of students and by a session that he's run in the last couple of months with the students. Yeah. Mathias, welcome.
Thank you, Brenda. Sorry. So I will just take a few minutes to present you an educational work that has been done at the University of Lyon. So this is the creation of an exhibition on the limitations and difficulties in implementing the One Health strategy. So this exhibition was produced using reverse teaching methods. The students research, proposed content, and then were supervised and supported by the teachers. So we worked with 34 students of the third year of the Bachelor of Life Science that created the exhibition. So some of them are present. And this was supervised by some teachers, Alex Lena, epistemologist, and also working on communication of sciences, Michel Ottman, human virologist, you are here, and I also was working on the plant pathology part of this exhibition. So one world, one else, one world. Is it a fairy tale? This is a question we address into this exhibition. The group of students was named Claude Bourgelat Promotion, and as Bart Thomas already presented Claude Bourgelat, it was an important figure that created the One Health strategy in Lyon. In 1756, he was a pioneer of One Health, writing in his theories of comparative biopathology the analogy of the mechanisms of the body of a man and of the animal is truly constant. And in 1761, he created the first veterinary school of the world in the city of Lyon. So students will present you 20 posters. They are located in the welcome area of the Congress. Here are some of the themes of the exhibition, such as sanitary plagues, geopolitics, institutional cooperation, North and South interdependency, global warming, demographics, forgotten territories and peoples, impact of crisis, societal inequalities, cultural diversity and care, beliefs, integrating ancestral knowledge, basic needs, between individual freedom and collective health, and political issue. And I think that the conclusions we can have from this project is that students and society's understanding of the challenges of One Health is far from complete and is hampered by the scale of the task and its enormous complexity. That's why the future of One Health lies in public education. And this can be also extended to our disciplines of plant health and plant pathology research. Governments, institutions, researchers, and all citizens of every country in the world must support education and support the teachers who are doing this work. I would like to invite you to attend to the concurrent session on Thursday evening about raising awareness of plants and ways of teaching plant pathology that will be chaired by Erik Alexandersson from Sweden and Elsa Balini from France. Finally, I would like to show you a book, an educational book that was made by some active members of the French Phytopathological Society. It's an educational book in French and the result of a close collaboration between dozens of teachers and researchers. And this book aims to give students a comprehensive overview of the biology and ecology of plant pathogens, their interactions with plants, and management of pest populations. So we invite French speakers to look at the book at the SFP booth number 32. So I thank you all for your attention.
I would like to thank Mathias CHOQUER because he proposed 1 year ago to work on this topic, One Health, and the student did it for the Congress. So have fun with this exhibition.
Thank you so much, everyone. So maybe I should give a challenge, Matthias. Let's translate this book into a number of other languages. We could start with English, but we could go to another of other languages. So, colleagues, thank you so much for your attention. I think the session has been actually much better attended than I thought it was going to be. Hopefully, we have put some questions in your minds that you will think about going forward. And as you leave, you will find some boxes that will have food in them. So share your lunches with other attendees at the meetings, and let's talk about One Health. Thank you very much.